Bay Area Vista, Vista.
Welcome to Bay Area Vista. I'm Janice Edwards. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today we are talking all about love. Johnny and Lara Fernandez are with us. They're going to tell us about attracting our soulmates. Then Joy Nordenstrom will talk about keeping romance alive once you found that special someone. So first today it is my pleasure to welcome back to Bay Area Vista Johnny Fernandez and Lara Fernandez. Nice to see you again.
Thank you. Thanks so much for being here. Nice to see you too.
Yes, and I should, in full disclosure, mention I have attended some of Johnny and Lara's workshops, which is why I wanted to share with you the information that I gleaned there, because what you do has made such a profound difference in an understanding about opening to love. So we want to talk more about that. But first of all, everyone always who is looking thinks, how do I find him or how do I find her? So how did you two find each other?
It's a long story and a short story.
Well, we only have a certain amount of time on air, but kind of medium story. We'll go for it there. Okay.
Well, you know, it all started with really deciding that it was really important to us. Each of us individually decided that finding our soulmate was really important. And so the process that we go through is opening ourselves up to that idea that it's even possible. And the short answer is we met on Match.com. But really what happened is everything that we did beforehand to open ourselves up to that really was the real story.
And part of that story, too, was you were in New York, you were in California, and yet you felt this compelling reason to come to the Bay Area, even though you don't like earthquakes, right?
Right, no earthquakes and a lot of craziness out here in California. But as a New Yorker, I just figured that what would be the biggest change in my life would be to leave New York and move to California, which I had only visited one time 9 years prior. But I felt something. I felt a calling. I felt something drawing me out here. And so when I made the decision to move out here, it was really, I didn't know Lara at the time, but it was really about feeling her energetic pull for me to come out here. Even though I didn't, not only did I not, only had visited one time, I didn't even know anybody out here. And so I decided it was time to make a change.
You were taking a leap of faith. So, Lara.
You know, Johnny says that energetic pull, and that sounds a little woo-woo, but we can go a little woo-woo every now and then. But I was doing a lot of inner work.
Because you'd had some disappointments in love.
I'd been married and divorced at a young age, and did the whole, you know, serial monogamy for a while. And finally, I realized from actually a friend of mine who became my love coach, she said, you know, Lara, you're in all of these really bad relationships that you keep complaining about to me, but, you know, the common denominator is you.
Ouch. Ouch.
But, you know, I was really mad at her at first, but I'm grateful to this day that she called me out on that. Like, you do you. You don't worry about all of them. It's not about him. It's about you. And once I got that it's about who I'm being and the kind of energetic vibration, so to speak, that that I was putting out, that's why I was attracting all those relationships. So I did a lot of work, and that's before Match.com. I did 2 years of just really going within. I took a dating diet. I just no dating. I'm just going to take a break because obviously I'm not doing this right, and I'm not doing this in a way that's magnetizing my soulmate to me. So I did that work. Went on Match.com, and less than 4 months later, I met Johnny.
And so right away,
well, within about 3 weeks from our first date on, we knew that was it. It was clear, and the rest is history.
I know you have a lovely little girl, Isabel, and it's been 10 years now.
Yeah.
But one of the things that you say that may make a lot of people go, ooh, is that doing that work within, because both of you were doing it. You had decided you didn't want relationships like your past ones as well. And that's the daunting part. It's easier to complain sometimes and say, like you were saying, you know, these relationships, all of these things aren't working. So when people decide, okay, I want to do that, what do you consider the first important steps toward really facing yourself and owning up to those things?
Well, I saw a quote recently that really sums it up. It says, you don't have a problem to solve, you have a decision to make. And the first step really is making a decision. Instead of focusing on what the problems are, there aren't enough good guys around, or I'm this age, or I've had these kind of experiences. I was married and divorced as well. But it was a decision that being with my soulmate was so important that I was going to do whatever it took, which for me included moving to this crazy place, which is my home now, and I love it. But really just doing whatever it takes and taking guidance from people that might help me along the way. And what I found is that that's what all of us who are with our soulmate, who consciously attracted our soulmate, did, is we made a decision, which is very different than a wish or a want or a like, or which is what I hear a lot of people saying.
So I want to meet somebody, but then, so when you make a decision, then that's like the steps every day. It's like when you change your eating habits. So after you find each other and everything's great, then problems come up. How have you dealt with it, and how do you advise other people to deal with it? Because that seems to be those times when it's either make the relationship or break the relationship up.
Well, the first thing we say is marry the right person. And, you know, I mean, but you're going to be putting in time and effort and energy into a relationship. And so you can either do it up front so that you can attract in the person that's really right for you, or you can spend the rest of your life trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. That doesn't mean that things don't come up between us, but it's totally different than trying to make something work. If you go to any bookstore, most of the books are about making it work. And in our relationship, even though there are issues that come up, they're dramatically less and very different than like conflicts when you're just not with your soulmate, when you're not with the right person.
So it's like the kindred spirit really makes everything easier in that way.
Yeah, that's the foundation of our marriage, of our connection. And from there, everything, the problems get solved pretty rapidly. It's just almost like when it's not to say that we don't sometimes have like an
come on, you must argue sometimes.
I mean, you know,
Yeah.
But they don't last that long, and when we're in the middle of it, we're just like, how can we get out of this, right?
How can I get
as quickly as
Oh, I don't
possible.
like
Yeah.
this, right?
Yeah.
I want to be back in that love phase.
Yeah,
right?
and
Definitely.
it becomes less about being right and more about how can we stay connected.
So that's another thing that obviously people want to know. What do you do to stay connected and present and focused, especially when the world's pulling you in all sorts of directions?
Yeah, well, we have regular date nights, definitely, and we do things together. I mean, we, you know, with our business, we have our business together, and we love that. We love being together, and we have a spiritual connection. Like we go, you know, to a church. We really are really
You have a
deeply
foundation then.
connected, and then also we just do things as a family and with good friends on a regular basis, and that's very important.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things too. I mean, a lot of times too, and Lara, you can identify, women talk about these things a lot, but to get men enrolled and engaged and involved is something that's different. So, Johnny, for maybe some women who are watching who are saying, well, this is great, you guys seem to be there, you were willing to work on yourself. If you are asking your partner to do some work, does that mean you're not with the right person, or does that mean just that you have to do some work?
Well, asking someone to do it is very different than having them feel inspired from the inside. Lara inspires me, and I feel inspired to be a better man, to be my best self. But she never asked me, hey, work on this, do that, nothing. I just always feel inspired to be my best self possible. And one of the things we always say is that you don't have to be anybody else. And so like with Lara, I feel very comfortable being myself. So if I didn't grow or change or anything like that, I mean, she loves me as I am. And so, and because of that, I feel very comfortable in wanting to grow and expand myself. And that updraft of energy is something that we brought into our relationship. So we both were in the process of learning and growing and expanding ourselves. And we just keep that going through everything that we do.
Yeah. You know, you mentioned earlier that there are a lot of books about making it work and different things. And part of the work that you did was, Lara, I believe you had a list, an extensive list.
Yes.
Johnny, did you have a list at all?
I didn't have any list at all. I just had a feeling that I moved toward. And that the biggest thing was that decision of, I decided that I was going to do whatever it took to be with her. I didn't know it was her, but to be with her, meaning, you know, not be so committed to being right. Because, you know, kind of you think you're smart and you think you do great things. And, you know, I thought I was, but really my results were telling me something different. So it was really important for me to step outside of that and do something different.
Right, step out on faith in that way.
And you know, for me, it took, I was at a point of commitment where, meaning I was committing to my soulmate before I even met him. Because I was at a point where it was either I was going to be with my beloved for the rest of my life, or I was going to be a cat lady. You know, the woman with the 50 cats who lives in the house down the street. And it was one or the other, because I'd already had that middle ground, you know,
Where the
between
relationship was
soulmate
kind of
love,
okay.
deep connected, and the cat lady. I'd already had that middle ground many times of this is just another okay relationship, or really bad, you know, unhealthy. So enough of that. It was one or the other.
Right. And so you had the list you two met, and we know that Match.com was a vehicle, but that's not an advertisement for any of that.
No.
It's just that just happens
Yeah.
to be how that happened for the two of you.
Yes.
So one of the things that I found really interesting in the workshop that I think a lot of people might relate to is if you have had disappointments in love, there's some steps to really acknowledge that, to heal and go forward, because a lot of times people get into those relationships with the baggage like that you were mentioning. So in shedding that baggage, what did you find most surprising that you learned about yourself in that process? I'll start with you, Johnny.
What I found was that by clinging to the baggage and the mistakes that I had made in the past, and I've made lots of mistakes. I'm sure there are ex-girlfriends out there and who are saying, I cannot believe Johnny Fernandez is an expert in love and relationship. But when I was clinging to the hurt and the pain, what I got in touch with was that I was depriving her of her soulmate. Now, again, I didn't know it was her, and so I was willing to actually forgive myself. And I was willing to forgive myself, not because I was perfect, but because she deserved to be with me and I deserved to be with her, not because I was a perfect person, but because, you know,
You want to share your whole self. with
yeah,
someone.
this is the truth. The truth is that I've been hurt. I've hurt others, and so being honest in that level was moving out of selfishness, because it's very self-centered to say that, you know, everybody else I can forgive them for their mistakes, but me, oh no, I shouldn't be forgiven because I should have known better. And like, well, yeah, if you'd have known better, you'd have done better. But you know, we were doing the best we could.
Yes, and you've learned well, and thank you for the expertise you're sharing with others, because you have so many testimonies of people who have followed the steps that you recommend, and that's one of the reasons that I think it's important for people to know that there are new ways of attracting love. There are new ways of living your life that a lot of times people remember when they were little and they had a dream about love that gets suppressed along the way, and they think that you're being too picky, it can't happen. But there is something in that core of that. It's not that it's the perfect person, but ideally the perfect person for you is somewhere there.
And we're in such a special time in history right now, because only now, this is the first time ever that it is not required that people get married or get into a long-term relationship, which means that we're at choice. I mean, just 100 years ago, a woman couldn't run her own business, own her own property, vote, things like that. And so there was a legal, almost legal necessity to be in a relationship, when now there is no such legal necessity. So now it's really about love. So it's a huge opportunity. And so just like coal is not the energy source of choice, and you know, we don't listen to 8-track tapes. I mean, there's things that change over time. And this, because we're in this unique time, there is a whole new way to attract and to be in relationship. And so, you know, whether it be meeting someone online or meeting them at a bar or a grocery store, those choices are out there. But what is different now is, how do we access those choices? Who are we being in that moment? And that's where, thanks to the research that I've done and seen, that all of us that have consciously attracted our soulmate followed certain steps. And it's not like, you know, like they say, this is not your father's old car, you know, it's not like the way people did in the past, because that was when a different framework of life and love and relationships.
Yes. And you know, in addition to this, you also share about abundance, in that sense of having the trinity of life. You find the love, protect your health, and also attracting wealth. So there's so many things that you do, and we just thank you so much for sharing your love with us and the work that you do to make a difference.
Well, thank you.
Thanks so much for having us. It's great to be here, Janice.
Oh, absolutely. So if you'd like to know more about the work that Johnny and Lara Fernandez do, the information is on our screen. Also on our website at bayareavista.com.